Hello, everybody. Welcome to the July 14th Planning, Energy and Environmental Quality Committee. We have just one camera today, so I appreciate people being flexible and moving around today. And so first I'll ask, is there any public comment, Taylor, that you know of? All righty, moving right along. And then any proposed changes to the agendas to the agenda that any members have? All right, then we're going to go to minutes. This is the minutes approval from the June 9th meeting. Would someone like to put that on the floor? Moved by Amanda, seconded by Greg. I had one proposed change. And I asked Taylor to give us a little more detail on the tax credits because I thought that was important to make note of. So this would be on packet page 2 under the Department of Planning, under the Clean Energy Tax Credits, and I'll read you the additional information that Taylor and Terry provided for us. So this would edit the minutes to say tax credits were received from the purchase of electric vehicles and the installation of a geothermal heating system at the Boswick Road Highway Department. The total amount of funding received was $1,829,248.44, of which $1,747,467 will be allocated to the Green Facilities Capital Fund, and an additional $81,481.44 will be allocated to the Green Fleet Capital Fund. Are folks okay with that change, addition? Okay, any other proposed changes or edits to the minutes? Okay, oh, I forgot to mention, but Veronica is missing this meeting today as they're out of town. So all those in favor of the minutes approval, that's unanimous. Thanks, everybody. And then as far as the chair's report, the only thing that I had was I wanted to see about rescheduling. Again, thanks to Taylor for pointing this out. So our September meeting conflicts with the NISAC, the New York State Association of Counties Fall Conference. So we wanted to see about changing that to a different date. So my first option that I wanted to propose was changing it to Friday, September 5th. Well, what is the meeting date that we have scheduled now, Taylor? Do you know the
8th.
The 8th? Okay, so changing it from the 8th, I'm proposing changing it to Friday, the 5th at 1. And Veronica has said they can do that. Is that good for folks? No, I'm seeing no. Okay.
With that date, but doesn't work.
Does work? Okay, the next date would be Friday, September 12th at 1. We have a no, a yes, and a no. Okay, then we have the 3rd, hopefully the 3rd time's the charm. Monday, September 15th at 1. No? Yes?
I wouldn't count me in for a reschedule. Excuse me, I have some travel plans in September that fall right in the dates that you're proposing, so I may be absent in general.
I have the same issue in that I scheduled a trip based on the meeting times. I could do the 5th. I can do after the 26th.
Is anybody here going to NISAC conference? You are?
Veronica and I are.
Okay,
Oh, and Rich.
okay.
I mean, if you have at least, if you at least have 3 that can confirm.
Right, so for the 5th, Veronica and I can do it. How many others can? So there's a no, Rich is a yes, and
I'm a no.
you're a no.
We could do all the controversial stuff then.
Yeah.
Right, that the other people wouldn't agree with if they were here. Good thinking. So we'll do,
Push it all through.
Friday, pardon me?
Push it all through.
Okay, did we say that out loud? So Friday, September 5th. Rich, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move the peak meeting on my calendar.
Friday, September 5th at 1 o'clock.
And if I may, we can also ask Dan if there's quorum concerns to backfill temporarily another member of the committee.
We'd have to get it appointed and all that, because we
Mhm.
ran into that with Geo, that,
I think the chair can do it pretty simply.
Yeah.
I remember doing it once and then it just would show up.
but that,
That's.
Anyway,
yeah,
I
we
can
could figure
figure it out.
that out,
If
yeah.
you need
So
it,
that's,
just as an
yeah.
option.
Okay, so I hope that works for most of the departments too. So that'll be we'll change that to Friday, the 5th of September at 1 o'clock. All right, thanks, everybody. And so we'll see, do we have anybody from county administration? Doesn't look like we do. So we'll we'll come back to that if anybody from administration pops in. Then next, we're trucking right along. The Department of Planning and Sustainability, we have a presentation. And this is regarding the Water Resources Program area. And we have Darby Kiley, Associate Planner from our Department of Planning. And Darby, looks like you have a presentation to give us, and take it away.
I do, thank you. Yes, Darby Kiley here from the Department of Planning and Sustainability to just give you a sampler of our current work in the water resources area. And we'll just a quick overview. I'll go over some of the groups that we're members of. We've talked in the past about the New York State wetland regulations, so I'll give you an update on outreach on that. Also, the total maximum daily load for phosphorus for Cuga Lake. I'll just shorten this for now. The DWSP2s will tell you what all that is. And then some grants we have recently received for some stream corridor studies. And we'll start first with bringing us back to the strategic plan of 2024. There's an area of climate change mitigation and resiliency. And so 3 areas that kind of touch on the work that we do, I mean, many other areas, but related to water, reduce flooding and improve habitat corridors, improving water quality and reducing sediment and phosphorus, and combating impacts of drought and improving water supply resiliency. So as for the groups that we, as the county is a member of, you'll hear right after me from the Cuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization. So Isaac is the watershed manager. You'll hear from him next, and Roxy Johnston is the chair of that group. So they'll be presenting. And so I participate on the executive committee as well as the technical advisory committee. So help out with planning the meetings and getting speakers scheduled. And then with the technical advisory group, we work with Isaac on, just the projects he's working on and moving things forward. And I'll note that I'm the appointed representative of that group. Annie is the alternate. So we have a membership dues that we pay into that every year out of our department budget. For the Water Resources Council, that's an advisory board to this group. I'm on that committee as the Department of Planning and Sustainability's representative. We also have reps from environmental health and then soil and water and a lot of other organizations. And I work with a number of different committees, including the Municipal Training Group. And actually I work with Kristen Hitchka, who's also on the agenda today, later talking about a different kind of work she's been doing. We have a committee that works on drinking water protection. So they are working with those drinking water source protection plans, and also have been keeping track of the watershed rules and regs work for Owasco Lake. We've had a group that's been around for over 20 years, the Monitoring Partnership. So they're really tracking what's going on the different just water quality in Cuga Lake. And then I've been representing our department, and then environmental health also works with the various municipalities on the drinking source water protection plan. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
Good news, right? From Owasco Lake?
Yeah, there's still another pending lawsuit.
Okay.
So good news, and we'll see what's
Still waiting.
next, right?
Okay.
We're kind of in a we're in the what does that mean phase. Yeah, no, that's great. And I just mentioned the last organization that we have, we pay dues to is a Stormwater Coalition of Tompkins County. And that's has representation from the Highway Department. Kelly Chapman attends those meetings. So that's just, you know, a sample of the meetings that county staff attend on a monthly basis. And I'd mentioned this at a meeting, I think back in November 2024, that at that point it was coming, but now the wetlands regulations in New York State have changed based on regulations that were put into place in 2022 and now are enforceable. And so the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, is no longer regulating just by maps. Those are now called informational maps, not jurisdictional maps. So they have a different way they're looking at where wetlands are. New is also that they are enforcing permits and regulations on wetlands of unusual importance. Yeah, Rich.
Jurisdictional and informational.
Yeah.
What's the impact of that change?
Ooh, man, how deep do you want to go on that one? So if it was the previous Freshwater Wetlands Act said, if it's on a map, it's a wetland and we regulate it. They no longer have a map that they regulate. They have a map that they say is for your informational needs. So if you're going to build a house and it shows an informational wetland on it, you actually need to get a jurisdictional determination. In 2 slides. So they have a button you can click and how you go through getting a jurisdictional determination. You apply. The DEC has 90 days to respond to you. If they do not respond in 90 days, you send a certified letter. And if they don't respond to that after 10 days, then you have a negative declaration or a negative jurisdictional determination. So it has to, everything that might be a wetland has to go through DEC for their determination.
So it's complicated.
It's complicated. All right. So DEC, am I catching up? Hosted a number, oops, so it's too far. Oh boy. I'm just going to be patient and see. Don't move through your slides real fast. Okay. At the beginning of the year, DEC hosted a number of informational webinars and then a few months later put out a Q&A that answers a lot of questions. So I've done some outreach with the municipalities in March, shared the informational webinars. I talked to TCOG with a memo and some information and shared, you know, what's available, asked if they had questions. Also encouraged them in a follow-up email recently to put the Q&A that DEC developed on their website so that if residents have questions, they can see those answered there. So that's kind of the how we're trying to coordinate with DEC. We're happy to schedule any more informational information webinars, but I haven't heard much of a call for that. I think it is that individual one-on-one, somebody's not sure what to do. So, you know, I think Soil and Water has some information, the municipalities have some information, but it really comes down to how is DEC getting around to enforcing the regulations that they have on the book. So this is just an example of a question from the FAQ of, you know, are municipalities responsible for regulating and dealing with the permitting of the wetlands? And, you know, the DEC said, no, you know, this is really the, you know, on DEC to be the ones doing the enforcement. And also they have maps that planning boards can use for determining kind of where this informational wetland might be located. And again, just talked about this big yellow button on their kind of home landing site for the jurisdictional determination. Any other questions on wetlands? Yeah, Rich.
I was talking to a home builder a few months ago, and he expressed real frustration that these changes make it much more difficult to build houses.
Mhm.
True, or is that?
Right. I don't know if difficult or just takes more time. Yes.
He was saying that
the definition of wetlands had changed so that, and this buffer, that trying to find contiguous property you could build multiple houses on has become much more difficult. And I was,
Okay,
look for reaction on that. I don't know if that's true or not.
yeah, I
Okay.
don't know. Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. What have we heard? Okay, so transitioning to the total maximum daily load for phosphorus for Cuga Lake. I've reported on this before, but just the history again is that Roxy and I have spent a lot of time working on this one. In 2002, the southern end of Cuga Lake, so there's a map on the next slide about this, was listed on what's called the 303D list as being impaired for phosphorus. And in the early 2010s, data was collected and models were developed. And eventually in 2021, the Department of Environmental Conservation released the draft TMDL. And we provided many comments on that. And in 2024, the final came out. So almost a year ago. And across the board, it calls for a 30% reduction in phosphorus load to the entire watershed. And so there are different areas that are called out. And I'll talk about that in the next slide. But we worked with DEC to schedule a number of presentations in late 2024, early 2025 to the various county organizations. So the WQCC is the Water Quality Coordinating Committee, the Cuga County Water Quality Management Agency, the Watershed Network held a conference with DEC and a few others presenting, and then the Cuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization held a conference. So the map that Rich is putting his face up to. So that very southern end, so that's the area that was listed as impaired. And then there's a second section called the Main Lake Mid-South that is that kind of greenish gray color. And then the Main Lake Mid-North is more of a northern part. And then you can't even see what they have called as the northern end. It's actually under that label. I'll ask them again to change that in the TMDL. So those are the 4 different sections, but this is a watershed-wide TMDL. So we had these presentations and we as stakeholders asked a lot of like, well, now what? Like, what do we do? Where do we go from here? So the TMDL lists all these different load allocations and percent reductions. And, we know that soil and water across all the counties in our watershed are, working at their fullest capacity to work with farmers and to get best practices on the ground and do some implementation practices. So, that is the bulk of the reduction. That's about 40 to 42% across a watershed is designated for agriculture reduction. So they're doing their best. So, we looked at, I just want to give an example of the developed land best management practices and what do we do there? And so the best management practices, the BMPs that DEC lists in the TMDL are things like tree planting and riparian forest buffers and different infiltration practices, swales, stormwater ponds. But it raises a lot of where and how and what's the impact. And so what we're working on, Isaac with the Cuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, we're looking at a pilot watershed to really identify practices that can be implemented. And we look to other watersheds to see what they're doing. So we reached out to Lake Champlain and they have been working on their own TMDL for over a decade or more, and they developed their own kind of interactive map. Ours might not be this fancy, but it was kind of the goal is to have areas pinpointed of where there can be implementation practices going on. So that's kind of the end goal for us, but we have to do this on our own. We're not getting help from DEC to do it. And so like I said, we're going to do a pilot implementation guide and see how that helps with just one watershed and get some areas identified. Well, with the Water Resources Council, we're developing a fact sheet on just what TMDLs are and how does that impact them. And then our WRC municipal training group is going to work on some training for the fall as well. So that's TMDL. I know, oh, I'm going over time. Then the next thing is the DWSB2s. I've talked about being a member of the City of Ithaca's, headed up by Roxy. Cornell's and Bolton Point's are both drafts have been finalized and they're under review by the state. And then there have also been some townwide drinking water source protection plans. And some of the outputs or implementations of these include the 6 Mile Creek Stream Corridor Assessment Study. So we wrote a grant 2 years ago. We now have a final contract with the state. And then the goal of that project is to identify areas where there can be practices, where we can do riparian reforestation, and then identify areas where there's erosion problems. And so it really will help identify projects for the TMDL and then also help improve the water quality for the City of Ithaca. And I reported back in April that we had sent out a request for proposals that we received 4 application or 4 proposals back from that, held some interviews and selected Barton and LaJudas to be the consultant on that project. And we just held a kickoff meeting last week to bring partners together and to start reviewing data for that project. So that'll be wrapped up about a year from now. So I'll give updates within the year on that project. We have a similar project going on, just working now with the state on the contract for Fall Creek. So very similar study. They have to follow the same outline guidance from the state, but this will be for Fall Creek and Cornell's drinking water source. Two other quick updates, just to preempt the question about dredging. We did reach out, Katie reached out to the city about that timing. No official update. They expect to hear something in late summer, early fall. So no update on that. And then just a heads up that tomorrow there's a flood insurance presentation at the Town of Ithaca or Town Hall, 215 North Tioga Street at 6 p.m. in person or a Zoom webinar. So if people want information, Abigail sent that out to all the legislators. We've been trying to get that out and there was a press release. So that's my announcements. Any other questions? Did I get all the acronyms spelled out? That was my question. I mean, at least verbally.
I didn't want to lead with that,
I
but
can't spell them all out in the slides or else there'd be no space for pictures.
so maybe I missed it. You do talk at a healthy pace.
I
I'll
watched
say,
in the
which
time.
there's a lot on our agenda today, so I appreciate it, and it's a lot of material. So I'm just gonna backtrack. Under the TMDL presentations, did you say what the Seneca County WQCC
Water
were?
Quality Coordinating Committee. So it's the equivalent,
Okay.
that one and the Cuyahoga County one are the equivalents of our Water Resources Council. They all
Okay.
seem to have different names.
And then the
So Cuyahoga County Water
Water
Quality
Quality
Management Agency.
Management Agency.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, and maybe you said those and I just missed it. But so yes, Rich, thank you, Darby, for getting all those.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up dredging preemptively. I saw in the news, Newark Valley got 7 inches of rain yesterday and last night. They have flash flooding. This is, great if they think they might possibly get an answer late summer, sometime in the fall, but we're on borrowed time. We're really on the edge of having a very bad event here. And we've already seen it, I think, in Newfield 2 years ago, last year. But it really is where the rain dumps. I wish that there was a little bit more urgency, and certainly listening to your presentation about the new stuff DEC thinks it can manage in terms of wetlands. I'd like them to eat their vegetables first and do the work that's on their plate. But maybe I'm being too harsh. Thanks.
Thanks.
Greg?
I know that the folks in you're kind of a middle person between the parties involved. If we wanted to have a conversation with somebody who may be somewhat responsible for dredging, who would?
Irresponsible.
Well, yeah, that would be the second piece of it. I'm trying to encourage them to come. Who would we invite to this meeting? I know last time we met with our assembly member, it was kind of alluded to that this wasn't a county problem. But when the county is tasked with responding to a devastating flood, then it becomes a county problem. So it may not be a county solution right now, but the county has a vested interest in making sure that this is completed. And it seems like there's a lot of bureaucratic finger pointing for the better part of 10 years. And I'm just curious who we could hold account, because it seems like our elected officials in Albany aren't really doing much to advance this. And there's a kind of a stalemate between agencies not wanting to figure it out. So who do we bring to the table to help get a real answer?
I think it's in DEC's hands. Okay, great. Roxy probably knows more than anybody. They're the ones who will be moving it forward because the dredge spoils area has been identified and set up. And, I don't know, maybe Katie knows more. No.
I don't know very much more, but I thought I'd try to help you out. I mean, I would start with the mayor of Ithaca probably as a starting point to find out maybe, it was unclear who would be saying the next step the end of summer or early fall, but it seemed like something might be imminent. So I guess I would find out what that might be before you raise it to the state level.
Okay.
That would be my advice.
Okay.
Any other questions, Rich?
Is that something we could consider for a future agenda item to invite the mayor or somebody from DEC to come talk with us about this issue? I note that at the Public Safety Committee, that New York State has bought a lot of emergency response equipment, pumps and, other related materials that are in our control to respond to a really bad event. So to Greg's point, yes, the state will be looking to the county to respond to these things, and it's going to be a pretty big issue when it happens. But, and I say when, not if, because it really is just statistically, it's going to get here. As Newark Valley's turn last night, the pictures are stunning. But we are being irresponsible.
Yeah, we do have some folks from,
I
Isaac,
just want to add, I don't even know if this thing's on, but I'm loud enough, y'all hear me anyway.
Yeah.
That, dredging is really a Band-Aid fix, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
actually solve anything and it only lasts for a few years. All that sediment has to come from somewhere and it's coming from upstream. So, long-term, the fix is to unfortunately spend money and put in practices upstream to help curb that. Obviously, it needs to be dredged right now because it's full of stuff, but it's only going to last for a couple of years.
That was the warm and fuzzy we needed right now. No, but I appreciate, it is a reality check, right? It's a holistic approach to mitigating these. So, your point's well taken. And I'd be happy to reach out to the city electeds and see if they had any official response and see how we might pull this together for another committee meeting if appropriate.
So are we first wanting just to get like a heads up or an update on the dredging?
Mhm.
So maybe that would be the place to start, to see if they'd be willing to come to this meeting or the legislature meeting.
Sure.
I would imagine maybe skip right to the legislature meeting, because this affects a lot more folks than just us. Rich, what do you think?
Well, to Isaac's point, beyond the last time it was dredged, it did last more than a couple of years. And, this has been a slow accretion since then. But the new flood maps have just gone into effect. And I talked to a property owner yesterday who owns a lot of properties and got a quote for flood insurance, which is just stunning. And, if you haven't built flood insurance into your lease as, a triple net responsibility that passes through to the tenants. This person's properties are not financially viable because of flood insurance. You know, getting the dredging done and getting the impact on the flood maps as a result of that has that, you know, issue as well. And that everybody with a federally insured mortgage is stuck. You know, the urgency goes in a lot of different directions.
Katie?
I'd just like to add that when these maps started to percolate through and we got an understanding of the impact of the new maps, we did hear from the legislature that they wanted our staff to take whatever proactive actions we could take. And so that is where we got these two $75,000 grants to do the stream corridor assessments. It's kind of phase one of identifying good spots where we could, you know, retain stormwater upstream to reduce the impacts of flooding downstream. So I just wanted to let you know that the county staff is trying to do this in
Thank you.
addition to the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I appreciate that, and that is really where, you know, the solutions, well, it's, I mean, nature can change and hit us with something anyway, but the real crux of dealing with this is prevention. And whether it's looking at various parts of the watershed, whether it's you know, it's not as, you know, it's things we don't talk about very much are like, you know, just how we deal with stormwater and, you know, and the riparian buffers and all these different things. But that's where that water is coming from, you know, before it gets to flooding is a huge part of this plan. I mean, just if we don't, I know we can, for just talking about stormwater, we can do a lot of things to deal with that. You know, when we look at flooding, a lot of times we're just seeing the effects of it, but all that water's coming and you're driving down the road and say that culvert, you know, can't handle it, or that culvert is clogged, or it's just overwhelming the ditches on the side of the road, or the way that we have the ditches. There's so many different factors. And so I am really glad that our planning department is doing what we asked and figuring out ways that we, you know, this is the long game, and trying to figure out ways to, you know, to prevent this and help mitigate them. Anything else on this? Darby?
I was just gonna, no one asked where this picture is from.
Oh, which one?
No,
Oh, that
this
one
is-
there.
Where's the picture from?
Where is that?
The Azores, just put it out there for vacation purposes, any vacation planning anybody's got.
Looks like Ithaca.
Did you take that picture yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Picture of
you.
a waterfall.
I was gonna guess that or Borneo, so.
I'll work in one of Katie's lists.
And we're going to be talking about watershed issues too with our next presentation. So anything else for Darby before we go on? Thank you so much. And so next up, from the Cayuga Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, often called QUIO, we have Isaac Walker, Watershed Manager, and Roxy Johnson, Chair of the Watershed Intermunicipal Organization. So, and just correct me if I got any of your titles or names.
No, you did
Incorrect?
very good, which is surprising. Most people don't. It's a very long and complicated name, so.
Well, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
then
Thank
for
you.
the folks following along in the packet, it's packet page 20 is the presentation.
So thank you for giving us some time on your agenda today. I'll try to be really quick. And in being really quick, I might not be really clear, so please feel free to ask questions if I make it too short. We are an intermunicipal organization, so our focus is working with local governments. That includes counties. There are other watershed organizations, and it can get confusing. They're all important because we all work together, but today we're focused on the municipal group. So a watershed probably most of you know this, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, it's all of the land that drains into a water body. It's that simple. Now, within every watershed, there are sub-watersheds. And this map shows you things like Fall Creek, the inlet, 6 Mile Creek, some of my favorite ones. And the Cayuga Lake watershed itself is a sub-watershed in the Finger Lakes and then Lake Ontario and the Great Lakes. But a really important piece to note about the lines on this map is that they don't match the lines on this map. So watershed boundaries don't correspond with municipal or government boundaries. And that can make it really hard for local governments to have effective practices or management over what's happening with the water resources within their boundaries. It might be starting upstream where you don't have any standing to act. So one of the things that CWIO does, I'm skipping over all my notes, that's a terrible thing, except I'll go quicker. One of the things that CWIO does is it brings the watershed perspective to the table. And it makes it easier for local government entities to form relationships and work collaboratively, provides opportunities for them to share knowledge, staff, funding, equipment, other things like that. So that's one of the main benefits of working within CWIO is that we provide that vehicle. And then the another point that I want to make is that by law, one of the charges for municipal government is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of your residents. So clean water is logically part of that. And the next thing that CWIO brings to the table is your watershed manager in the form of Isaac here. And your watershed manager will help you fulfill this charge as a municipal government. It will help you fulfill those duties with respect to clean water. You can do that now. You don't need an oversight organization to do that. But what that does is it puts that onus on every single entity to be aware of where the problems are, what the kinds of solutions are, what the funding is this year, to fill out the paperwork. And then, gosh, do you even have time to find partners and work together? So CWIO really takes that pressure off, and having someone who is on board, who learns the landscape, is familiar with the local area, has a relationship with your town, makes it so much more efficient for municipalities to work on their water resource efforts. So where does Isaac get some of his best ideas for solutions? We lean into our guiding documents. The first one is the Restoration and Protection Plan, which CWIO developed. The first one in 2001, updated in 2017. The HABS Action Plan from 2018 and the TMDL that Darby talked about already. All of these are recognized clean water plans by the state. That means if you can reference work that they suggest, then your grant application will get more points. So just by being in touch with these documents, it'll improve your chance to bring funding in for your projects. So we're going to go over the threats real quick. None of these will be a big surprise to you. The one thing I want to point out again is just like the watershed boundaries, the threats don't recognize your municipal boundaries either. So the storm events are becoming more extreme. We're having longer droughts. We're bringing higher levels of water and a lot more sediment with it. And with that sediment, more nutrients. And none of our infrastructure was built for that, right? So we're going to see more damage. We might even see some health issues with the HABs that are more prevalent now, partly because of the excess nutrients and partly because of the overall warming, giving you a longer growing season. So we have two levels of issues. We have, I'm going to back up one. We have this local infrastructure issue, which Isaac can help with. But also we have a larger issue that's multi-municipality or regional or even state level. And CWIO advocates and works at those levels to make changes in policy and funding to address those larger problems. And then the only other one we have on here is invasive species. And that's just another example of what climate change is bringing to us. It's allowing invasive species that couldn't live in our winters to hang out here now. And so there are new problems. Again, to have someone focused on researching that is helpful and efficient for local governments. And I'm turning it over to Isaac.
It's going to turn it over to me now. So I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we did in 2024 and then continue on with some of our plans for 2025, even though we're halfway through. So I guess it'll be a reality check if I'm actually getting stuff done or not. So projects we worked on in 2024, the first one and probably the biggest one, this had been a long time in the works, was for the town of Covert. They were in bad need of a salt storage facility. You can see the first picture there is what their salt pile currently looks like. And theirs is not the only one around the watershed that looks like this. So we were able to secure WQIP funding from the DEC to get them a new salt storage facility built, which is underway currently. We also partnered with the Finger Lakes Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management, the PRISM. They were awarded a federal grant from the U.S. Forest Service to conduct insecticide treatment of hemlock woolly adelgid. If you're not aware what that is, it's an insect that kills the hemlock trees, basically. We have a lot of tree killing insects too, not just water invasive species. And so this project took place in the state parks, two of them here in Tompkins County with Robert H. Streeman and Buttermilk Falls. They also covered Fillmore Glen and Watkins Glen. So I provided the quality assurance on that to make sure the contractor was doing their job, effectively and treating what needed to be treated. And then we also hosted, an informational meeting with the contractor. This was at Buttermilk Falls, on the upper side of Buttermilk Falls. I don't remember what month that was. You were there. No, it was in the fall. It was like November, probably. And then another thing, and this has been another one that's been in the works for a while, for Seneca County as a road ditch assessment. This is in partnership with our sister organization, the Seneca Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, or SWIO. So it covers both watersheds in Seneca County. And this is just assessing ditches and culverts. And then the second part of this, once the assessment is done, which it's almost done, will be to go and apply for implementation funding to actually fix those culverts and ditches. And this is also in partnership with the Seneca County Soil and Water. Tompkins County has done a similar thing to this. Their soil and water, your soil and water has done a road ditch assessment. We're hoping that we can kind of get these to mesh a little bit. And then, we'll have two counties covered out of the watershed, which gives us a pretty big, idea of the issues that we're seeing. So yeah, those are some of the things we've worked on this year.
And we're about, Tompkins County is almost half of the watershed, would you say?
43%, she's telling me. She's got
43%.
notes down there.
Oh,
I
right,
guess,
because
so.
we'll see that when we get into funding later, right? The
Right,
43%.
right.
Thank you.
So some other things that I provide are municipal representation. So I'm a voice, for the municipalities and the executive committee too. We all kind of share the load on that. On various state level, county level, other lake organizations, we're a voice for the municipalities on those bodies. So you can see here we have a list of a few of them. I'm not going to read it because you all can read. We also, provide letters of support for various projects. Municipalities, oftentimes will apply for grants on their own. They don't have to. I can do that for them, but sometimes they do it on their own anyway. And so, we're more than happy to provide letters of support for stuff like that. Or, we've talked about Owasco Lake here in the beginning of the meeting, and, we provided a lot of letters of support for their watershed rules and regulations. Education, we do provide some outreach and education. This would be one instance of it. We do leave this more to our partner, the Watershed Network. They're better suited for that as the Lake Association. But a few of our meetings, we have offered trainings with certificates of attendance, which can be taken back for credit for planning board members, saying that you learned something relevant. So we offer those in both May 24 and 25. And the 2025 work plan. So this is what we're working on this year. You can see a whole list of things. You know, there are some things on here, agriculture, right? That's kind of secondary to what we do. We try and let soil and water handle most of that. They're better equipped for it. It's, you know, their jurisdiction really. But when it crosses into municipal issues, you know, if you've got tile drain issues with ditches and stuff like that, then we can step in and help with that too. But we do try and work with soil and water on that as much as we can. There are some more, you know, hard projects that we're working on, one of which is a stormwater project. This isn't on the next slide, is it? I'm not skipping ahead, am I? Oh, I have it. I'm not following my own notes here, so. So the stormwater project, we applied for a grant, a planning grant to look at various, you know, stormwater best management practices that we can install on municipal property. A lot of those sites came from the city. Obviously, as we know, and just talked about, the city has a stormwater issue. So anything we can do to help that, you know, things as simple as just curbing your roof runoff can do a lot. People don't realize that roofs and the runoff from roofs and gutters creates a lot of stormwater. And so if you can capture that in a way and hold it on the landscape, you do a lot to reduce your flooding risk. So we've applied for that grant, and then we've also been working with Soil and Water on a stream restoration site here on a tributary that dumps into 6 Mile Creek.
And also from your sump pumps in your basement.
Sump pumps, all of that, yeah. And, you know, illegal sump pump connections, that's a big problem that I'm sure you all are aware of. You're
People
not
connecting
supposed to
to their.
discharge to the sewer system.
Right.
Sewer systems are not designed to handle stormwater. I mean, they were in the past, but we had a lot of sewage discharge then, so they've tried to get away from that. And so this is just a more summarized list of our priority focused areas. Like I said, you know, ditches, land use, drinking water, and all of this stuff, again, is highlighted in at least one of those 3 plans that we talked about earlier.
And that's Teganic Park right there.
Yes. And Roxy's going to take over again and talk about the Quio dues
Yes.
update, I guess.
So the next warm and fuzzy update. So I'll be short about this. We've gone through a few iterations of dues formulas for Quio. The first was a flat fee of $900 for every municipality. That seemed attainable, but it actually was a hardship for some small municipalities, and it provided inadequate funding to maintain a watershed manager. And so we did have a watershed manager for just a few years. Her name was Darby Kiley. She did a pretty good job, but
I've heard of her.
yes. But like I said, it was not sustainable. We weren't able to continue to staff that, and went many years without one. In the early 20s, we came up with a new funding formula. It's modeled a lot off of the Canandaigua funding formula. It takes into effect basically the amount or impact or presence a municipality has in the watershed, acreage, shoreline, frontage, things like that. But it also has, and those are sort of constants, of course, but it has a couple variables that do change: population density and taxable assessed value. We set a funding goal of 90,000. Our membership went up from 24, 25 municipalities to 36 that have been pretty steady. But we have 57 in total, so we still have a gap. And we're always looking to improve that through some of this outreach. But most recently, our $90,000 funding goal is no longer, and that includes all of the costs, not just the salary for the watershed manager, but the bulk of it is to fund the watershed manager, no longer meets New York State minimum requirements for exempt employees. And so we've had to make small increases outside of the structure that we already had. But we need to make a major change. When we first did the new funding structure, we looked at 2 goals. One was 90,000, one was 130,000. We've talked this over off and on for this year and early and late last year. And Quio has decided the funding formula is sound. We'll just jump to the other figure that we had originally looked at, 130,000. We don't want to always be at the very bottom, the minimum salary required, because what we'll do is we'll hire someone and then they'll leave, which is not efficient. One of the key benefits of having a watershed manager on the ground is that they get to know the area. I don't know how many of you have had the experience of talking to someone from the state, a state agency, and they really don't know anything about the Finger Lakes. They have no concept of gorges or, how the water flows or the Finger Lakes. So we do want to retain our talented and informed staff. So that is the impetus for that. Letters have been sent out to all of the governments showing them what the calculated dues will be out. It'll be phased in over 3 years, 2026 through 2028. The only thing that again changed was your census numbers and the taxable value parameters. So those, along with acreage and shoreline frontage, have the biggest impact on the dues. And so that explains the number you'll see here. So Tom, this is a list of the counties. So the counties cover 30% of that goal, and the municipalities cover, villages, towns and city cover 60% of that goal. Tompkins County by far has the largest percentage of presence. Most of it's in actually the watershed. Actually, I misstated that earlier. You asked about how much of Tompkins County was in the watershed. I was looking at this percent of the payment, 43%. It's far greater than that. Yeah. I don't know the number, actually. It's probably,
It's basically 2/3. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Oh, wow.
three
Far
main
greater than that.
counties, right?
Right.
Seneca County, Cayuga County, and Tompkins County.
Can you
are
use
the
your
ones-
mic?
Are the ones that border the lake, so they hold the most land area. Of course, Schuyler County and Cortland County have a little bit. But yeah, so it's about 2/3.
well, of Tompkins County, the part that's in the Cayuga Lake watershed, that's most of it. There's just a little bit down in town of Caroline is in the Chesapeake Bay or Susquehanna watershed. So I misspoke. I wanted to correct that. So that's how it breaks down for the counties, and that's the 100% goal. That's not phasing in over the 3 years. We do have breakdowns for the municipalities within the county. Again, the 100% goals. And then what can you do? Well, if you are a member, please maintain your membership because that supports your watershed manager and this watershed perspective. If you are from a municipality that hasn't joined, please consider joining and supporting this work and taking advantage of what CWEO provides. Also, if you're a member, please appoint a representative to attend the meetings, and you can appoint an alternate. You don't always have to make all the meetings, but that's how you can get information, come back from the meeting, take concerns to the meeting, get to know Isaac personally. Contact him, ask him to drive around, see some of your problem areas. The very best way to recoup your membership dues is to submit a project and have Isaac get you a grant. So please take advantage of that, and thank you again for your time today.
Thank you for that very detailed presentation, even though you didn't follow your notes. I think it flowed very well.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Sometimes I do that too. It seems different when you start talking. Rich?
Yeah, I'm curious, has Tompkins County started its ditch work, do you know? Based on its assessment?
I don't know, and we have not met. I'm supposed to meet with Angel Hinnagel from Soil and Water about this project to see how it really relates to what SWEO and CWEO have done in Seneca County. To my knowledge, they have not started that. They just had the assessment, but I'm going to assume that, that's part of their plan too. It doesn't do you much good to gather a bunch of data and then do nothing with it. So
Do you have any sense of what that costs?
no, I don't. We have,
What did our grants, the Seneca County one?
well, just for the assessment was, I think,
the
around
implementation.
$600,000. The implementation we'll have to see. So the way we've done this is Ian and I have assessed, have surveyed these ditches and culverts. We've been followed by a technician from Soil and Water who is assessing them, saying, this one's fine, this one's not fine, and so there's kind of a running tally of ones, but then we're going to have to go back and actually start, engineering those, and then we'll have an idea of what it's going to cost. to apply for that grant.
So when you get a ditch that's not fine, what's the matter with it and what do you do about it? You seed it?
It could be, yeah, I mean, it could just be that it's bare and it needs to be seeded, which is, pretty low cost. It could be that the culvert is completely blown out, it's hanging 6 feet up in the air from where it discharges and causing a lot of erosion. The ditch could be eroding itself, on either bank. It could be cutting into the roadway. It could be cutting into a field or whatever. It's a myriad of things. It could just be down cutting really. I mean, around here we see it a lot with ditches that are 6 and 7 foot deep. And part of that is just the topography, a lot of times there's no real way around that. But stabilizing that is the biggest thing that we see is just erosion issues.
And I assume in the longer term, if you're doing this work, you're probably protecting your roads and bridges
Yeah.
so that there's long-term benefit.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's, part of it too is also factoring in climate change, right? So upsizing those culverts to be able to handle these larger storms that we're getting. I mean, I don't know that anybody's been factoring in 7 inches of rain in a couple of hours to these plans, but generally the storms we see now we're getting 2 inches of rain in an hour or two. And most of the systems are not designed to handle that. They never were.
I had one more question.
Go ahead.
I can't remember which presentation it was, HABs and phosphorus. Is there a correlation between the two or are they different?
Yeah.
If you're addressing phosphorus, is it likely you're going to address some of the HABs issue?
Yes. Yeah, that is the hope. Nitrogen is also a problem that has not been looked at as much, but is definitely a problem for HABs as well.
Amanda?
In case anyone hasn't read the news from our local reporter, there have been numerous 50 cases of HABs reported in the past 8 days. So pretty much the entire lake has had something reported, and please do not swim in the water or let your pets swim in the water.
Or drink it.
Or drink it is incredibly unsafe.
Last I saw, it did clear up like the last day or two.
Good to know.
I think the rain helps knock it down a bit.
Great.
So.
But my question was just about the other municipalities, the other counties and municipalities. Are they all contributing, or, I mean, you don't have to give me like a rundown of who is and who isn't, but do you have the majority of folks?
We have, so everyone who starred on this list is a paying member. So we have a good representation, but we also have a decent number that still are not. We all benefit if we all contribute.
Yeah.
But some things have improved in the grant environment a little bit that were troubling when we had Darby on staff. For a while, there just weren't a lot of funds available. Now, well, I know things are in flux now, but there has been more funding recently, but there is still an issue that a lot of the grants don't allow you to pay staff or very little staff time. They're all set up for you to hire contractors. So when our service is the watershed manager, it can be difficult to use grants to offset that. But this one that we've applied for, the planning grant, there is a plan that if we get that will cover some of the salary costs. So we are always looking for that option as well.
Great, thanks.
I had just a couple questions on the due structure at the end, because I know we'll have some questions maybe from other legislators and stuff. So I just want to make sure I have it clear. So are you saying that, so the new structure is going to be 130,000?
Yes, that's the total goal. If everyone was paying in, then that's the total amount. That's the goal.
Is that the total amount that would be all the starred when you went back to that chart?
Yeah, yes.
So that's with the
No.
people that are
No.
currently paying?
No,
Or
it
that
would-
would be if
everyone.
other municipalities paid who aren't currently paying?
That's correct.
Yeah.
It would be if everybody paid, not just the ones who are currently paying, but everybody in the watershed, all 57 municipalities, then we would have 130 then we would get $130,000 from the dues. We would not meet that goal. I mean, we won't meet that goal.
We won't meet that goal probably. There will probably always be some municipalities that do not participate. We don't reach the 90,000 goal either now, which is part of why we've hit the wall on this minimum requirement by New York State on the salary.
And so would this be the due structure for 2026?
So what you see here is the 100% value. So the goal is 130,000, and then we divvy that up based on those variables I mentioned to each municipality. And we're going to start with an 80% of that goal. What would that value be? Then 90%, then 100%. The start point was determined by the fact that because of population and tax value changes, if we went lower than 80%, some current members would actually have a decrease in their membership dues. So we'll phase it in. At no time do we realistically expect to get the whole $130,000, but it will move us to a place where we're above the minimum, we're competitive. We'll actually have a few dollars if there's something like a soil and water grant. They often run into an issue with matching funds that is hard for a property owner to meet, but it has a benefit for the community. That might be something we can help with. We'll have a little bit of money for that to move projects forward.
And so for the example, for the city of Ithaca, 2026 would be 80%, 2027, 90%, 2028,
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so then would the chart or the slide below that, do you want to, can you go to that just so folks know what I'm asking? So then, so for that slide, for the Tompkins County, $19,039, is that the 100% goal?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, would we be looking into
Yeah.
that for 2028?
2028, yes.
Okay.
We don't have in the presentation here the breakdown of the 80 and 90. A letter was sent to the.
Darby says that she has it.
I do, yeah, the 2026 number that we're putting into the budget is 15,232. I don't know if it has change or not on it. And then the 2027 number would, so the number that falls in between is 17,136. And then the 2028, 19,040.
Thank you.
Yep.
And do you know what it is now?
It's,
14,000, no.
I was gonna say, it's
11,000.
11 something.
Yeah.
Okay, and that'll be something we'll be talking about at some point with those figures. During budget season. Okay, Rich?
I feel like we're nickel and diming here. We should meet our obligation. If it's 19,000 where we should be, to protect the lake.
We'll never say no to more.
But I guess I looked to my colleagues, what kind of direction would we want to give to county administration and planning for their budget stuff? I mean, if we're talking to 15, we're talking to $4,000, get there.
I'd be willing to consider that because, we're looking at other municipalities are not paying in, even in the county of Tompkins, we have, I think it's Freeville and Groton who aren't contributing thus far. Maybe they will, for next year. I hope they will. But, we've been talking about this for most of our meeting now. And if, we're talking about flooding, we're talking about protecting our natural resources, the economy. So for an extra $5,000, and maybe that's an incentive for other municipalities to step up, I would consider that. Greg?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Rich. I'm like, why are we, I appreciate the phased approach. And I know we say one thing in April when it's budget direction season, and then we become Santa Claus, just handing out money at the end of the year. Not
And
that
then
that's
we
the
go
case.
to the Scrooge and
And
September,
all of the
October.
emotions in between, but I think it's such a critical piece of our natural infrastructure to make sure that we preserve quality. I would be supportive of going, Rich, to your point, like we should lead by example, because if you can support it, you should. If for some reason that $4,000 is gonna break Tompkins County budget, one, we have bigger problems, and two, we know where we can pull it from. Because we can just phase this one in. The question that I had though too is, if a municipality isn't participating, do we avoid their municipality?
No, we don't completely avoid them, but that wouldn't benefit anyone. But they won't have access to Isaac helping them identify projects and bring in funding. We have sent letters of support if they've engineered and applied for something on their own, that is good for everyone. We do support that. But they don't have a vote at the table for the priorities that we're working on, and they won't have access to Isaac's help.
So I'm looking at Freeville and Groton, which were the ones that were starred, and it's like
Not starred.
not starred, yeah.
Right.
The ones that stood out as not starred, like $349 and $1,000. Are they just not concerned, or is money really that tight for?
So I personally haven't visited either of those. I haven't been the chair forever, kind of short term actually. So I do actually hope to get out to some of the areas that have less land in the watershed. That's been a focus of mine, but that wouldn't be the case for Freeville. Maybe part of Groton. Not sure. I'm not looking at the map, but
Groton's pretty substantial, like Scott and
Okay.
Sempronius, I can understand why they just.
right, they just don't think it has an impact. On the flip side, I live in the town of Catherine in Schuyler County. Everything in the town of Catherine that's in the Cuba Lake watershed is on the back of my property. So I went to a meeting, I asked them if they would let me pay the $10 at that time and appoint me as their representative. They giggled a little bit like Darby, but they were on board with the concept. And then from then on, they've just been paying, even though it's up to $18 or something terrible. But there are other places where it's $30 or $40 and they just don't, that's not a priority, I think. I think that the watershed and thinking on that system and about water resources is probably not a priority for that entity.
Is there a way that we could bring this to TCOG for?
That's our next presentation in.
That's amazing. All right, because it'd be really great to gently apply pressure to hopefully have 100% participation from Tompkins County municipalities.
So
We could do earth moving to align the watershed with municipal boundaries.
No, I'm not in favor of straightening out the streams. Please don't do that.
And I just, before we beat up, I know Roxy has to go, before we beat up on Freeville, and Groton, Freeville does, of all of the, I didn't mention this in the TMDL presentation, but of all the point sources on, so those are the direct.
thank you, Roxy.
Yeah, thanks, Rox. The wastewater treatment facilities, there are only two that are targeted for reduction, and one is Freeville and one is Interlaken. And so these are, tiny plants with very small populations that have to do a pretty big upgrade. So they're, $350 might actually be a lot for them, given that situation. And then I just think for Groton, they mostly drain to Owasco Lake. All of the village of Groton is in Owasco Lake watershed. Most of the town of Groton is. So, I think they associate a little bit more with Owasco, and they have representation on groups there. So I don't want to beat up on either one of those guys.
Sure, sure.
for
And
what
just
they are
to,
doing already. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So to circle back, so this, the dues for Quio comes out of the Department of Planning and Sustainability. So if we were to ask that, say, a higher number be put in, would that be direction we would give Katie or?
Yeah, Corsa and I are meeting on Friday to talk about the budget, so it's
Okay.
great timing. We can have that conversation.
Okay, thank you. And so we're a little bit behind, but before we go to Department of, Isaac, thank you very much.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support,
Thank you for
especially and
coming.
willingness
Let's-
to pay the larger number.
We'll discuss. We'll discuss it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for all the information. And so anything else? Okay, so so before we go to Department of Recycling Materials Management, Katie, do you have any other thing, any updates? Oh, we have, we're missing one. Oh, we have one more thing. We have Terry. Okay, so Terry, and then I'll go back to you to see if you have any updates. You're good. And then I'll squeeze in Corso to see if he has any updates from administration before recycling. Terry, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I can make this pretty quick.
Yes, so Terry Carroll, Chief Sustainability Officer.
Yeah, so a couple months ago, earlier this year, I know I gave a little bit of a preface about this to the committee, and Katie has also brought it up in a previous commissioner's report. But there was something called the Municipal Investment Fund that was created through some of the previous administrations. And I think this was through I think it was through the Inflation Reduction Act. It was part of I'm trying not to use acronyms, Annie, so it's a little bit hard here.
Thank you.
The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the GGRF. They had set aside $25 billion to help provide some public-private partnership opportunities. So this was born out of that funding. It went to a group called CGC, the Coalition for Green Capital, and they created this municipal investment fund. And what it was a fund that allowed for the development of public-private partnerships. And they were looking for applicants. They were looking for 2 applicants from every state, and then a couple of tribes as well. We ourselves, Tompkins County and the city of Ithaca, talked to a bunch of different partners, including New York State, the New York Green Bank, some green banks down in New York City, and then also talked with a nonprofit called Community Sustainability Partners, CSP, and they ended up putting in an application that noted that if they were successful, they would work with Tompkins County and the city of Ithaca to develop a roadmap to create public-private partnerships to promote clean energy goals. And then that application went in, I think, in maybe March or April, and the new administration came and tried to claw back the $25 billion from the GGRF, from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. We thought this funding was dead in the water. We didn't expect anything to come from it. But last week we were informed that they had been selected. CSP, the Community Sustainability Partners, had been selected for receiving $250,000. And so we will be working with them in the city of Ithaca, as well as a team out of Cornell System Lab led by Professor Timur Dogan, to start trying to put together a pipeline of projects that could be done. Originally, this was going to be phase 1 of a 2-phased opportunity. The second phase was going to offer up to $2 million to help actually implement some of what you put together in this market-based solutions and this marketing plan and roadmap. Whether that can still happen, given what's gone on at the federal level, remains to be seen. But we know that they're at least going to be able to get $250,000 to help us try and map out some potential projects in our county. So we're excited to work with them, and we'll do that over the next 6 months.
Oh, so 6 months. And is CSP a nonprofit?
Yeah, they're a nonprofit that often works with the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, NYSERDA.
Okay, so great news. So if you're on a trend to coming to us with good news.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep trying to. We're going to talk about the rate case next. So maybe not so much good news coming.
That might not be the.
Yeah. And actually, if I can spare a few more seconds. So the rate case did come out. I had a conversation.
This is NYSEG.
The NYSEG, the New York State Electric and Gas.
Thank you. I was wondering what that was. Yeah.
They did come out with the rate case. I had a conversation with Eric Verfus, who's their community relations manager over there. He's offered to come to Peak next month if there's an interest, along with a colleague, to talk a little bit more about the rate case. And I said I would pass on that offer. whether you wanted to go to peak or a different committee or the full legislature, I'm sure they'd be open to any of it. So I'll leave that to you, but they're more than happy to come.
What do folks think? I think I'd like them to come. Are folks okay about that? And if so, full legislature or this committee?
This committee.
I think probably the committee.
Okay, this,
The full legislature in the next couple of months.
right, okay, so this committee? If they could come, that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, and so you'll be in
Yep,
touch
I'll
with Taylor?
organize it with Taylor and we'll get them to come in and yeah,
Great, thank you so much.
of course.
Thank you, Terry. And Corsa, did you have any updates?
Yeah, no additional update. And thank you, Terry. I received the email and I pushed it to him and he was excited to jump on it. So thank you for leading that for us.
Thank you. And Leo, do you have, we have an informational item. Did you you have any other reports or updates from your department?
Just a couple quick things. We had about 8 or 9 folks show up out at Caswell landfill.
Oh, great.
Friday afternoon. It was warm. But
It was hot.
It was hot, yeah.
Probably a good
actually.
time to be at a landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did bring a couple packets for the folks that I know Ann, Greg, Veronica wanted to be out there, but they couldn't. I've got copies of our handouts that we gave, just some tidbits about the landfill, a little history and whatnot. So I'll leave those with you.
Great.
Yeah, we just have a capital payment summary. The other thing, as I was sitting here, we just got notified by the DEC that our local solid waste management plan is officially accepted and approved by the state. So
Woo-hoo,
we have a finished, completed
that's great.
plan.
Till next year.
Yeah, no.
That was a, 2-year process at least?
Barb started it prior to her retirement. Yeah. Yeah, so it's actually probably a little longer.
5-year plan? or
It's a
3?
10-year plan.
But I mean, as long as it took to,
I think so the start date on the plan would be 2023. So we've got a 10-year plan through.
so it takes almost 10 years to plan
just
your
about,
next 10-year plan.
yeah, just about.
Well, congratulations.
Yes, yeah. That feels good. Check that box off.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Any questions? Rich?
Just thank you for the tour. And I thought Nate did a great job presenting, really comprehensive. That's a lot to learn.
Good. Glad to hear that. And yes, Nate did a very good job out there. So appreciate it, Rich.
Great, thank you. All right, Leo, thank you very much for coming, even though you didn't have a ton. It's important to give the updates. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And then we have, let's see, we have Cornell Cooperative Extension up next, and we have Cynthia and Rob. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell us what you're going to be talking about today.
Sure, thank
And
you.
just, sorry, Cynthia, packet page 35 is their presentation. And Cynthia is
So-
the director
Yep.
and Rob is the finance manager.
Sure. So Cynthia Cave-Gaetani, thank you, Director for the Cornell Cooperative Extension here in Tompkins County. And Rob Brown is our Finance Director, and said Cornell Cooperative Extension. So
About four inches from the mic works best.
how am I doing it? Let me just get a little, is that about right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. All right, well, so just a moment of gratitude for allowing us to be here again today. We want to, we were very interested in presenting just on additional programs and projects that we provide at Cornell Cooperative Extension and an interest to demonstrate some of the return on investment, so to speak, of the investment of the county provides to us, but also of how we return the investment and the outcomes of the work that we do. So this is, today we selected 3 different programs. I'm trying to advance this. This is not advancing. Why is it? It's frozen. Okay, that'll do it. There we go. I guess I'll have to do it by my fingers. Okay, so we just want to do a quick review of our funding, just as a general overview. We are, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yep. So we'll have some exquisite opportunities to discuss funding in greater detail over the next few months. But since y'all have expressed some interest in ongoing information and refreshers on our profile, we just put together a few things. This slide runs through County Law 224 is the New York State law that created extension among other functions. Like it's the closest we have to articles of incorporation. It also details the funding formula and allocations from the state of New York to extension associations. And I remember last fall, Rich, that you expressed disappointment at not having information on what these allocations are. So I'm pleased to provide them completely straightforwardly right here on this slide, with the caveat that when New York decides to its levels of funding for extension, it does not coordinate with the counties on how you choose to fund your extension. So my colleague out of extension administration based on the Cornell campus is responsible for reconciling the state amounts to the county amounts and doing any weighting. But this is where it starts. But basically, you fund us, the state matches every appropriation contract dollar and the value of donated use of facilities for those counties that house their extensions. This is a little bit of a profile on where our contracts come from within the county, the work that we are paid to do by the departments and our appropriation, then how we divvy up the appropriation. Hasn't changed much since our last meeting. Out of our appropriation, we had to divert a bit more to agriculture, but the overall shape of things is the same. And I think we can move forward here. Yeah. And then again, we have some ebb and flow, similar financial profile to the last time we visited in terms of where our financial resources are concentrated. Our environment and climate change issue area is definitely our largest and our most strongly supported, mostly through state funds. Our 4-H and family and community development is our second largest area, and it is our most brutally funded, mostly private or out of our appropriations. And then our operations, agriculture, and then nutrition, health, safety, and financial education issue area is tiny and mighty, and it is the one that is most being affected by the federal shenanigans.
Okay, so the first program to highlight today is our Agricultural Farmland Protection Program. This is work that is done through county targeted funds. This is primarily funded through the target funds. I provided a handout. It demonstrates that we have 3 different goals that we work on, and this is part of the plan that was put for the last 10 years. So we're actually due for another reworking of this plan. There are 3 goals with 6 objectives total. The highlight out of all of that report that I provided, I thought we would spend a few moments to talk about the goal of people interested in farming will be successful future farmers or farm employees. Of particular to that goal, the objective being to promote farm transfer options to farmers and encourage them to plan for future transfer of their farm to family members or non-family farmers. This particular, in the past 2024, we've had really good success. This has been a very focused area and a growing area of the work that we have done in this particular objective. We have seen in the past year, 2024, that 77 acres in Caroline, 140 acres in Lansing, and 50 acres at Enfield were all part of a successful transfer. Those included connecting retired farmers with other service providers and introducing next generation farmers to retiring farmers. This facilitated the sale of contracts, exploring options to meet with long-term land transfer goals. And so the success overall is around 300 acres in 2024 that was transferred. In this work, we are also looking to advance agroforestry training programs. This is an opportunity for us to address objectives 1 and 4 of that report. This is an area of agricultural economic development, and our agroforestry program is something we highlighted a little bit last time, but this is something that we definitely see opportunities for additional support and work in 2026. The next program that, go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I just had a question. We've seen some success with what the IAED is doing around some of their direct to work or Tompkins Build program. And as you were thinking about this, I was like, I wonder if a farming or agricultural type program where you may take those that may not have experience to farm work or something like that could be exposed to a variety of farm work with maybe larger farm partners, and then look for, again, I don't know if there's a lot of farm jobs out there, again, that's not a space that I'm in, but it'd be interesting to know if a model like that is existing anywhere or would be a good model to bring locally.
Yes, and I will go ahead. You're a little, jump right in.
So glad you asked. A lot of our farmland protection work is focused on the new and transitioning farmers, but an anonymous private foundation just funded us to develop a agroforestry workforce development curriculum that our objective is to have it. Like our focus is the agroforestry industry in the Northeast, but we hope our curriculum will be usable everywhere. And I also want to flag on this, like we stuck our little chart of expenditures over time just as a brief, not exactly passive aggressive entreaty in that our farmland protection work is a mandate for us. It was funded under contracted services from the Tompkins County Planning Department through 2009, and we've been pulling it out of our appropriation instead of for its other purposes ever since.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, further to that, are we foreseeing some real issues this harvest season because of what's happening from our national government? And, you know, I go over and buy grapes on occasion, and, you know, the people who pick the grapes are from all over the place, and they come and do the work and then they move on. If they're not there, how are we going to do our harvest? Do we know?
Yeah, I think that that's a good question, not one that I'm equipped to answer at this time. I think that's very much on the minds of many. I also, I do know that I had a conversation this morning actually in regards to how the weather and the growing season is impacting local agriculture. And we are definitely seeing some pressures on especially the crops, the field crops. Corn is not doing well at all. We're seeing some challenges because of the very, very, very wet spring that we had. You couldn't put any, you couldn't lay the crops down. And if you did, they flooded and they just didn't take. And we definitely are seeing some stresses with the heat now. And that has some challenges with growing, especially of different kinds of products.
Can't pick it.
Yeah,
Other than
so
that, it's fine.
yeah. And then animals, of course, have to, there's some stresses on them as well. So there are some complicating factors to our agriculture, definitely. Our composting program, this is a county contract with TCRMM. This is a program that we also supplement with some additional fee-for-service models. So this is not purely funded 100% with this county contract, but certainly that's the major component. And we do have some private funding with this program as well. Within this program, this is really interesting. I find we had 2,700 individuals that were reached with the educational program, meaning they were provided direct education on composting. And 14,000 pounds or 7 tons of food was recovered and prevented from going into the landfill. This is around $106 is what the tipping fee is for trash in Tompkins County. At least that's the number I was provided. So that would equate to about $742 for 2024. So that doesn't sound quite as impressive. However, if you think about the true cost of trash and what the recovery of food compost actually can provide in terms of prevention. That's much more difficult to quantify, but certainly I think is very much worth mentioning that this program provides social benefits as well as financial benefits.
Cynthia, if I could add too, that, the tipping fee is if everybody took all that organic waste, brought it all together and paid for it by the pound, but in reality, the cost it's probably hard to not quantify, but everybody's paying per bag.
Mm-hmm.
So
right,
it's costing individuals probably quite a lot more.
It is probably costing individuals quite a lot more. We do have currently 84 active master composters that are that came out of 2024, and this year 15 new graduates. So what that means is all of this education and all of the individual work, as Ann you just spoke to, they're doing composting themselves, and they're teaching, and there's more outreach. So the program is magnified through the work. The total amount of volunteer hours for 2024 was 1,563 hours. That averages about 400 hours per quarter. In addition to that, there was additional non-master composter volunteers. So people that just wanted to spend time and produce and get involved. And that was an additional 346 hours for 2024. Those are hours that people just give. And if we put a quantification around that, depending on how you want to price that, we can do that math, but I think that speaks for itself. Questions on that? The expansion of this program is really what I wanted to earmark. There is a private funding that is helping to expand composting into the school districts. So the work that is being done this year and into next year, we are able to work with school districts to identify barriers to what is prohibiting them or is a challenge for them to actually initiate a composting program. Help to remove those barriers and perhaps make some connections so that composting can occur in the schools. And that will be tons and tons of food again that will be prevented from landfill. The last program to highlight, this is a program that is initially funded privately, and now it is a fee for service. The reason I bring this forward is because it just demonstrates that although there's not direct funding from the county that you can identify, it's the support of administration and other supports from the target funds that supports programs like this one. PS It Works is out of our family and community program. And this is a program that we're very proud of. PS It Works is a parenting education workshop. It was initially developed in 1986, and this developed communication skills. It's designed to replace irrational behaviors with rational behaviors. The program continues to provide a strength-based communication skills program to hundreds of families, providing itself to continue to be relevant and helpful during many challenges, cultural, technological, social media, et cetera. This is such an important program, especially now, given some of the environments that we are experiencing. And it is really important to also know that this has been adopted and adapted nationwide, this curriculum. So this was birthed out of Tompkins County, and now with some funding from federal funding through the Smith-Lever funding, we are able to expand this to a PS It Works 2Gen. I provided you with a breakdown of what 2Gen looks like, but in essence, it is taking these skills and teaching it in a way where parents or individuals can practice the skills individually, separate from their youth. So there's 2 sessions going on at a given time. They are taught the skills, then they come together to actually practice them together. The highlight is on communication, and this is beyond communication with families. This is communication in a number of different kinds of scenarios. You could improve your communication in the workplace. You could improve your communication within your own community to help navigate challenges and other communication barriers that you may have. So this is a program, this 2Gen program is something that we are using as a model for expanding communication and community development and building better connections, especially in these times. So these are the 3 programs I thought would be really important to just highlight. And again, we did talk a little bit last time about our federal funding. I'm sorry, my finger is it's very sensitive to that touch. The federal funding that we have, as Rob was talking about, where there's some challenges, is with the Department of Energy. We talked about that the last time, where there was some pullback or some loss of funds from the Department of Energy. We just learned, and I'm sure we're all aware, that SNAP, or the food stamp nutrition education program, there was some cuts to that. When it comes to the food stamp nutrition education program, which is what SNAP Ed is, that was stopped altogether. So that was completely defunded. So we have lost that work, which is educating individuals and family members on how to best utilize their food stamp dollars and food resources. So that's a loss to all food stamp recipients. And then, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, how much was that loss on SNAP Ed?
Ooh, that's a tricky question because it's got all sorts of knockoffs. But 60 to 70,000 is my direct estimate.
And do you have any idea what quantity of SNAP benefits that 60 to 70 serves?
No, a lot though is the answer. But you know.
So obvious, I mean, I guess my line of thought here is obviously SNAP benefits are utilized within places to purchase food and other things within our community. That 60 to 70 helps people maximize the way in which they're spending that SNAP funding within the community. So there's an impact that we should be trying to quantify and capture so that we can tell the story of what the federal government through cuts like this is, having an impact on 500, 1 million, 2 million, whatever the number, whatever the number is of SNAP dollars, being utilized, and this is helping people maximize that money.
Right. I just want to point out that that would be somebody else's job, not CCE's in a way.
To what?
To quantify, but we can certainly.
Well, I guess my question is,
And I just want to say, we have about 1 minute left because we do have one more presentation. So
I guess my only question there, Ann, was if the program, in the funding cycle, we've got to look at metrics, which we've continued to talk about before. So trying to understand what is the impact of the 60 to 70 cut, the larger picture. I know that may not be necessarily your wheelhouse, But trying to tell those stories is really important to trying to recapture that 60 to 70, either through federal programs or through state or local money or private foundation money.
Understood. Thank you.
We've been talking a lot about what what sort of pivot is possible and what funders might be out there for just helping people understand the changes to eligibility with SNAP. It's the program, like eligible people in our county have been under participating to begin with. And now that the new barriers are there, there may be an educational niche for us.
So we have time for probably just one or two quick questions. You guys are done with the presentation, right? So sorry to cut folks off, and Greg, sorry to cut you off, but one or two quick questions.
Thanks. In years gone by, a number sticks in my head of the leverage coming from county dollars sent to CCE, and the number 7 sticks in my head, but I don't know if that's accurate. Do you have a sense of, for every county dollar that goes into CCE, what the benefit comes out the other side? Because you're leveraging that money.
We could put that together. One of our foci this year, as we continue to work on our plans, is to further document how our programming is multiplicative with other agencies. So
yeah, spoiler alert, I during the budget, I always liked that number.
Yeah.
I seem to have heard you asking something about that before.
Yeah.
It's actually a very complicated number because we're realizing with the impacts of many of our programs, it's multiplicative, as Rob had said. So actually capturing a true number, I think, is what we're really trying to achieve, and we will achieve.
Yeah.
But we don't have it prepared today.
That's all right. And even a ballpark, I think it's good for the legislators to understand that.
Sure.
that-
I think demonstrating just the land transfer and so, some of the things to quantify, some of it is much easier to quantify than other areas. And so, it's important, I think, for us to be clear that not every program has a dollar amount associated to it, because some of it is softer or preventative work, and I think that shows value as well. But certainly having hard numbers is our goal.
Both.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's more questions, we can follow offline. So thank you so much, Cynthia and Rob, for coming today and presenting more on some of your great programs. And so we're going to go on to, we have one last presentation, and that is regarding Flood Watch New York, documenting local floods through community science. And in your packet, it's page 61. And then we have Kristen and Allie here virtually. And so I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and start your presentation. We can see it up on Zoom, so it's working. So welcome.
Hi there. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for having us back. We gave a real short presentation on this, and then this is sort of a follow-up. So thanks for having us back. And I'll also just say thanks for having us be part of this really interesting and robust agenda today. It really fleshes out the picture of how of flooding in Tompkins County. So thank you very much. So Allie, you want to take it away?
Sure. Hello everyone. As you've probably heard, my name is Allie Hartung, and I'm a summer intern for the New York State Water Resources Institute. And I'm working for Kristen to use MyCoast to increase community engagement and flood resilience planning in New York and Tompkins County specifically. But Yiting Zhang and Maddie Mealy are also interns working with us on this project. I'm good for the next slide too. Okay, so for just a little background, MyCoast is a tool that allows people to share and track photos of changing water levels, shorelines, and hazardous weather impacts. And these photos are linked with environmental and geospatial data and stored in a single database. And you can access MyCoast with the mobile app or on a browser within the MyCoast website. And then we'll be focusing on the floodwatch reports within MyCoast. And you can kind of see in the upper right-hand corner of the slide there, that's the floodwatch report. And people use FloodWatch to capture and track flooding across the state and within their community. And before I continue, I just want to emphasize that neither Floodwatch nor MyCoast is limited to residents of coastal areas. These reports can depict inland non-tidal flooding and its impacts. All right, so why add flood events to MyCoast? The Floodwatch reports can inform flood resilience planning. The data from these reports can show areas of recurrent flooding and fill information gaps in existing data sets. And this is like especially true for smaller scale events and in headwater systems. And it can also provide specific site level information. And using MyCoast, we are hoping to connect with potential municipal users that have photos of past flood events to create a larger data set for Tompkins County. I'm good for that. Okay, and then sort of an application of MyCoast. These reports can aid in emergency management of flood and storm events. And specifically, as we see here, it can aid emergency management and field outreach. And it can aid before, during, and after an event. Good for the next slide. Okay, and many emergency managers are currently using it in practice. So for a real world example, the town of Southampton's emergency manager, Ryan J. Murphy, has incorporated MyCoast into his operations center. So he uses it rather than his employees going into the field and emailing photos to later be organized and attached to data. They rather upload their photos to MyCoast, and he can see the MyCoast reports in his operations center. And he has found that it's been extremely useful and successful for his operations. He found it notable that MyCoast can monitor flood and storms in a community in real time, and that they're instantly stored and organized as soon as they come into the database. And he also really appreciated that how reliable MyCoast was because of its fast refresh rate, which I have there is 1.5 to 2 minutes. And he also liked being able to see that he had his staff reported damages reports and then also the crowdsourced flood and storm reports that they would send in. And moreover, you could organize and specify your reports to a single location. So within Tompkins County, you could specify to just the town of Danby, and you can even go to, you can look where it is in the town of Danby or the time that it occurred.
I'll just add super quickly. He's also said, sort of in the context of all you all are talking about quantifying benefits, we asked him to quantify the benefits that he is receiving from using MyCoast, and he's calling it a free force multiplier, and he estimates they save it provides $100,000 a year for them, for their municipality in benefits.
Wow.
All right, so then within Tompkins County, this summer, we are targeting municipal historians and emergency managers to encourage their use and familiarity with MyCoast. And we know this is a busy time of year, but we eventually hope to connect with other potential municipal users, including highway departments, Department of Public Works, and the Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation District. And then sort of looking at our current outreach activities in Tompkins County, the future events are bolded, but the unbolded are the past events that we've done for outreach.
I will also just make a quick note on here of 2 really particularly useful conversations we've had recently. We spoke with Jessica Verfus from I think I'm saying that right, from Emergency Management. And she had some wonderful ideas. We're really excited to follow up with her looking forward. And even she's part of the statewide Emergency Management Association and has some opportunities to connect with them. So really excited about that. And also, I think they've left, but at Tompkins County, we spoke with, oh, my brain is hurting, but the lead for extension for energy and climate change. And he also had some incredible ideas for getting the word out about MyCoast, not only in Tompkins, but in and neighboring counties as well. So really excited about those opportunities. And maybe last thing I'll say here too is that down at the bottom, we say we have some booths at some storytelling events. I don't think we have chat possibilities, but we're working with Danielle Eisman at the Cornell Public Health School, and she's doing a series of storytelling events in Tompkins County. I can email them to you all, but the first one is coming up on the 21st, and it's at the downstairs, and the next one's at D&B Food and Drink on the 23rd, and then there's actually one on the Teal, one of their Wednesday night community cruises is going to be about flood storytelling. So stay tuned, and hopefully some of you can participate. All right, so just we'll try to keep it brief. I know we're here at the end of the agenda, but roughly how does MyCoast work? You community member or municipal official, anyone can become a registered user for free. It's very quick and easy. You take photos, either historic or on your phone, current photos. You can upload that then through the portal or through an app, an online portal or through the app. And then that gets associated in the back. It becomes part of a database, and it gets associated with a bunch of environmental variables as well. So the report types, Ali kind of covered this: Flood Watch, Storm Reporter, and CoSnap. We really are focusing on Flood Watch, but there's also Storm Reporter, which can report damages from any kind of storm event. So yeah, Flood Watch reports, it's from across the state, from any cause. So it could be, it doesn't have to be tidal, as MyCoast kind of indicates, it could be any kind of flooding. Here's an example of what a flood report looks like. So when you pull it up, it shows kind of this weather, the background information that's happened, what was the wind speed, what was the rainfall in the past 24 hours, water levels. And then if you want, you can put in cause of flooding and what is flooded, and there's a photo associated on the map. Let's see. So if you wanted to, then what's really, I think, really powerful about this this app is that you can then, anyone can go in and query on the website. You go in and you click search reports, and it allows you to collect all the information from the report. So you can filter them based on, what kind of, which tool are you using? What's the cause of flooding? What county? So in this case, it's Green, but it could be Tompkins. And then you get all of the reports that have been submitted that fit those criteria. And you can then download those reports. And what you'll get is all of the photos if you want them, or just a CSV, like a little spreadsheet that gives you all the information from each of the different reports. So that can be used in planning documents, grant proposals, in lots of different ways. Really excitingly, and I think I mentioned this last time, MyCoast is now a layer in the Geographic Information Gateway from New York State Department of State. So you can see it here. Basically, each dot is a report, and this has the same refresh rate, so it's constantly being updated, and you can then add it to any map you're making. It's very easy to use if you have a GIS person. It would be but I would say even a novice could use this data set. Just while I have it up here, you might notice that there are a lot of dots down in Long Island, down in New York City, up the Hudson, partly because they experienced tidal flooding. I think to some degree it's easier to remember to use MyCoast if it's this periodic, repetitive type of flooding. But we're just trying to push a little up into upstate New York, into the Great Lakes, because it can be a useful tool throughout New York State. So again, as Ali said, who uses the data? It could be concerned residents, somebody interested in tracking change, somebody who's lived through the floods, emergency managers, weather enthusiasts, advocates. So this is actually from a survey of current users. And then how do you use the photos for improving improving flood forecasting with the National Weather Service, improving flood modeling, grant applications, community planning, emergency management operations, as Ali mentioned, and education and risk communication and research. So the idea is that in the end, hopefully it improves decisions and products. And I'll just, I want to be respectful of the time here. I'll kind of keep this brief, but, thinking about all the conversations we've had today, really, understanding flood resilience, dealing with flooding is a bigger picture than obviously my coast can handle and deal with. But it's one piece, and I think a critical piece in all of the things you're talking about. So how do we identify threats? How do we identify what is being impacted? And then how do we make good decisions about paths forward to reducing those risks, reducing the vulnerabilities, and through all the different avenues that you mentioned. Is it dredging? Is it riparian plantings? It's lots and lots of different approaches. So what are we seeing? Again, I will go through this very quickly, but this is sort of what we're seeing right now in my coast. Just a quick highlight here. As moving into upstate New York, we've worked with the Kettle Lakes Association, and they have a storm response plan. And basically, everyone just used to email their photos to one of the volunteers, and she was just overwhelmed. We trained her in using My Coast. She's really excited. Her job got much easier. It's much easier to the volunteers just put the photos directly into the database. It's really easy for her on the back end to query it, look at specific events, put the data on maps. It's super, super easy. And she would admit that she's, I don't know, technophobe may be too strong, but not a technophile for sure. Here's an example of we don't have a lot of data in Tompkins County yet, but again, we've been pushing, and this is one example from Slaterville Springs. This shows the event. There were multiple photos for this particular event in her backyard. She has the causes of flooding. Again, 6 Mile Creek, it pulls from the stream gauge right there in 6 Mile Creek. In some places, it's being connected to municipal websites, so people are using it to, again, for all the reasons that we just talked about. So again, this is our call to action. We're trying to get people, I'll say, we focused a little on Tompkins County, partly because, honestly, I live here. We live here. The Water Resources Institute is based out of Cornell, but also because we have this push to kind of move upstate and help upstate communities be prepared, a little more prepared for flooding. So again, this summer, these students are helping to work on developing a package that any county who's sort of initiating some flood resilience planning, it will demonstrate to them what is My Coast and how might you use it. It's going to have lots of tools, fact sheets, examples of how My Coast has been used. But it's fairly simple. So I think I will stop there. Again, I don't think I said this up front. My name is easier to say than it looks. I'm Kristen Hitchka, and I'm right here in Ithaca. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, we'd love to follow up with you. But really excited about the work we've done so far and the connections we've made in Tompkins County so far.
Great. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for fitting it in the quick time frame. Have you been in touch with the Tompkins County Council of Governments to do a presentation, or are you wanting to reach out individually to the municipalities?
No, that's an interesting point. I think we have not. I think it's on the long list, but no, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. No, I don't think we have.
Okay, so that's just one suggestion. So thank you. And I did download the app, and you just register, sign up, and it's very easy. I haven't practiced putting any pictures. Luckily, I haven't had any pictures of flooding to show recently. But I guess you could go in and put past pictures too, right?
Yeah, I didn't say this in the, Ally mentioned it briefly, but we gave a presentation to the municipal historians in Tompkins County and kind of followed up with them this summer to see if they had photos that they wanted to upload. So yes, you can put current photos, but they could be just, flat paper photos that you have. As long as you have the date and time, we're kind of putting together a protocol for this, but it can be roughly estimated. So one of our students, Maddie, has been working on, we were pointed towards Historic Tompkins. They have a small flooding database of photos in Tompkins County. She's getting those into My Coast, but basically you can kind of estimate if it's 1956, you can say April 1956, and then there's some rough locations. As long as you're documenting where you make assumptions, that's fine in My Coast. So yeah, so that historic photos are fine, and we've been adding some in over the course of the summer.
And maybe some of our media would have pictures too going back, or taking them in the future that could upload them.
I love that. So we started down that path. We ran into some gosh, what is it called? Copyright issues. But we did talk with one of the outlets. I'm now not remembering which one, but one of the Ithaca papers agreed to let us use it as long as we cited them. They were fine with letting us use their photos. So we're going to be uploading some of their photos, but we kind of have to work with each outlet to make sure that they will allow us to use their photos. There's some window of time. If it's older than a certain date, we can do it. But if it's recent photos, yeah, we have to get their permission.
Okay, great. Any questions? Rich?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. This seems really timely as we're seeing more and more extreme weather events. Listening to what you were talking about, I couldn't help but think about the Guadalupe River in West Texas, or the Hill Country in Texas. I don't know if I have the right.
Yes, yeah.
It's such a tragedy. And one of the things that struck me was how disconnected everybody was, that there wasn't a way to communicate. I guess they've got very poor cell service, and this kind of requires either Wi-Fi or cell service, but
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's true.
But it just is a shame there was nothing similar to that there, where they understood the risk was real and they didn't do anything about it. It just seemed.
I totally agree. And it was a real tragedy. And I would say you're right that My Coast in some cases can be really helpful. I know down in Kingston, New York, basically they count on she's an incredible person, one of their environmental planners, basically texts a group when she knows that the flood stage gets over a certain level. She knows that there's a problem, and they get the word out. But they're looking for ways to automate that process. So it's not as reliant on what if she's, taking a nap or on vacation, what happens to the community. So yeah, thinking about how My Coast can help. And I think I think that would be a really powerful use of My Coast. Again, that is how they're using it down in Southampton to help inform real-time management and decision-making. But we could go on and on, but I will say in that case, another big tragedy, and maybe somebody here knows more than I do, but they had started to look for funding for a flood warning system, which is incredibly critical, and they were denied funding for that. So they did not, maybe it wouldn't have been put in place in time. I don't know the timeline of it all, but I agree. I think sort of like I said before, it's a multi-pronged approach that's going to make us flood resilient. It's going to be, looking at flood warning and detection, understanding where floods might be, recording where the impacts are, and then like you were all talking about, exploring ways to kind of do mitigation, reduction. Yeah, this is one piece.
Well, thank you very much, Kristen and Allie, for the presentation. If there's other questions, I'll encourage people to follow up individually. And thanks again for coming today. I really appreciate you coming back and doing this.
Thanks for inviting us back.
Thank you.
Take care.
Anything else from anybody before we adjourn for today? Okay, we are adjourned. Oh, Rich.
I did want to note it's Bastille Day, so vive la France.
Good to know.
Not necessarily a peak issue, but I didn't want the moment to pass.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.